Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sai Ram and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagawan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 5th May 2016. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1991. Have a listen, please.
Offering a most loving pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's episode of Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. As always, joining you today is Sai Prakash and Prem from Team Radio Sai. Those of you who have been with us through this series, you will know that we're going through the 1991 summer course series. We're in the fourth discourse, and this summer course is about the Upanishads. And the fourth discourse is the discourse where Swami starts off with one of the Upanishads. And that's where we are. We're pretty much in the middle of that discourse. This discourse is about the Ishavasya Upanishad. But before we talk about what Swami has said so far in this discourse, and of course we are very eagerly waiting to go ahead in this discourse, a very enlightening one nevertheless, I invite Brother Sai Prakash to join all of us. Saram Sai Prakash.
Saram Prem. Yes, this is a very, very beautiful discourse. Surprisingly enough, the more we get into it, it looks like it is revealing to us the secret of right action.
Right. I mean, that's the thought which struck me. Because one thing which, when you go through it, you see is action is inevitable. What Krishna says, tells Arjuna in the Gita. Mm-hmm. There is no way you can escape action. And so, having got stuck in this inevitability, what is the best way to do it? What is the best way to do it in a manner that it eventually liberates you? Right. And that's the whole thing, and very, very beautiful discourse.
The place where he says, this is the disease and this is the cure, this is the disease. Like hunger is the disease and eating food is the cure. This part where he says, craving for pleasure is a disease and action is the medicine.
Right.
It's really amazing. And what he says further from that is he gives this example of if you have potato and chapati in your plate and you keep repeating potato chapati, it won't get into you. You have to do the right action of actually taking that potato and chapati and putting in your mouth. Right. So I guess this discourse is all about right attitude to action and right action itself.
Right. The way Swami starts the discourse, because it's a padyam which Swami sings during many discourses about truth and how the entire creation is from truth. Right. But in many ways, it's also the first sentence of Ishavasya Upanishad, where it says that the world has come from the Lord and is surrounded from the Lord and is completely suffused with that divine principle. Correct. It's very similar to that. Of course, Swami has spoken even before as truth, equating it to divinity. Yes. So Swami starts with that padyam, but then quickly moves to truth as spoken truth. Correct. And how, when you speak about the ultimate truth in the spoken form, it varies from what you call fact. Correct. And Swami gives those beautiful examples of you don't go to a blind person and accost him saying that, oh, blind man. Right. Or go to a lame one and say, oh, you lame fellow. Though that is true. You're not transgressing from truth, but that is not the right way to do it because it is not in sync with the ultimate truth.
And Swami, as we mentioned, I think last time also, Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat, satyam apriyam. That Satyam bruyat, speak the truth, is Adi Bhautika. Okay. Priyam bruyat is Adi Daivika. And na bruyat, satyam apriyam is Adhyatmika. So Swami has told this in some of his discourses.
Yes, very beautiful.
Yeah, he says, when you speak with the right intention of not hurting the other person, there is the truth. When you see a blind man, yes, he is blind, but you can't call him blind man. So I think that is spirituality.
Right. Then from there on, Swami speaks about Upanishads in general.
Yes.
This, I think, Swami had mentioned it even in the previous series when Swami spoke about the Vedas, where the Upanishads come in what is called the Jnana Kanda of the Vedas, where the rest of the things, the Samhitas, the Brahmanas, they come in the Karma Kanda. In this clip which we played a couple of weeks back, Swami says how the entire role of the Upanishad is to bring together this concept of action and the concept of jnana.
This is something totally new, actually, even for me. When you read some of the Upanishads and, you just take purely the Upanishadic text and you read it. Yes, it gives you the highest truth, but then you are left with the question, what should I do? And I think this is the answer to that.
Exactly. And when I was going through this part of the discourse, there are some one-liners of Swami which are very catchy and become very popular. Love all, serve all, help ever. Very beautiful statements. But when you go through these discourses, there's so many such statements. They
abound in these statements.
Which pounce at you and seek your attention. There's one such statement which Swami makes here is, karma or action flourishes in jnana.
Yes.
And jnana is strengthened and demonstrated by karma.
Action. Yeah.
What a beautiful statement it is, which, in one statement it says that it cannot be separated and how one expresses itself through the other. Wow. Karma flourishes in jnana and jnana is strengthened and demonstrated by karma. And it's almost like the starting statement which Swami makes in that part of the discourse, where the rest of it he explains how the Ishavasya Upanishad especially stands for this particular teaching of the Vedas.
Right.
How action and jnana is clubbed together. Then, of course, Swami speaks about the concept of attachment to the fruits of the action.
Right.
He says a person never gets bound to the action as long as until that attachment to the results of the action comes in. Says the attachment to the fruits of the action is what binds one to the action. And of course, to the specific of this discourse, as the discourse itself is titled as the Ishavasya Upanishad, Renunciation and Pleasure, Swami goes on to say how this particular Upanishad speaks about bringing together of pleasure and renunciation.
Yes.
And this again, the first verse of the Upanishad itself speaks of that. Tena tyaktena munjitaha. Where it means that find your enjoyment in sacrifice. That's the meaning of that statement. Right.
In fact, just going through this and then what Swami says after this about action, you come to think that there are two aspects to action. One is the intention and the attitude with which you act. And second is the action itself. It's just a way of simplifying it for conversation and for understanding. And if you do an action which is selfless and with nishkama karma, means you don't expect the fruit of your action, that is tyaga. So the giving up of the expectation of fruit of action is tyaga, and what you get in turn is real bhoga, that is pleasure.
Right.
And it's very, very subtle, but I think over discussion and when we contemplate more, you can come to this balance of, when I act, is that action is necessary. Like, for example, I'm going to have food. I am having food. But if I have food with the feeling that, I am going to grow fat, I am going to grow healthy, I am enjoying it, then that's not nishkama karma. You are eating with the expectation of fruit of your action. At the same time, only the truth will enable you to think that, yes, I am feeding this body. It's very subtle. I'm just trying to put a situation.
Words, right.
The whole idea is to be in that state of understanding and awareness all the time. That's something.
In fact, what you're saying about intentions and actions, if we now go back and observe Swami's response to actions,
right,
we would see that Swami's response to actions was a very wholesome response, in the sense Swami would never respond to the action. Swami would always respond to the action and the intention.
Very true.
But if you look at us in the worldly sense, we always look at the perfection of the action, the excellence of the action.
Right.
Because of course, as normal human beings, it is beyond us to look at the intentions all the time. But with Swami, it was always, an action will always be seen with the context, seen with the intention behind it. So that is what even an ordinary action becomes an excellent one from Swami's point of view.
Exactly.
And how many times we've seen that, in Mandir programs. I remember one of the programs which we saw when we were studying in Vrindavan, we had come here and Swami had announced that there will be a program in the auditorium. I think you must have been in your second postgraduate.
Okay.
That time when there was a typical village folk art in the auditorium where they would have these men who would play the role of women too, and they would have spontaneous singing and dialogues as song, and they'll have a curtain and there'll be a prompter behind the curtain. Okay, this was in the institute auditorium. Swami said, Vrindavan boys, Prasanthi Nilayam boys, school children and the primary school, and Swami was sitting there. The auditorium was packed. Okay, and it was stuffy there. We had no place to sit. We were standing outside and seeing through the window. And really speaking, we could not enjoy that program because it was not in our taste,
Something like Chenchu Lakshmi.
Yeah, Chenchu Lakshmi or something like that was the title.
Right.
And Swami was really enjoying it.
Ecstatic.
I know, we were sitting there and from where we were standing, we could see Swami's face. Swami was enjoying it. We was feeling stuffy. It was so loud for us. We couldn't understand the dialogues. And the next day, Swami called them to the mandir. Swami distributed watches. Swami distributed the clothes to them. If you look at it, we've seen Swami getting the best of the musicians to perform in front of him. And here was Swami sitting and seeing this folk art. I mean, there was something much beyond what met our eyes and ears. That Swami was attracted to in that program. And I think we've seen that in many, many, many times, be it students program or other devotees program. So that ability of Swami to see an action as a combination of action and that intention which drives the action is something we have observed with Swami.
Very true, all the time. In fact, a slight deviation, but I had just gone to the bank, the state bank here, and as I was just withdrawing money, I saw some sevadals, from Maharashtra.
Okay.
And a few ladies had come. They had come as sevadal. Basically, they had come for seva. In the corner of their saris, each of them had something like 20 rupees, 50 rupee notes, and all of them with so much happiness, they're taking and giving it as donation to the trust. At that moment, I was so moved, like with what pure intentions, and they were so happy. I could see they give their money, whatever they want to give to the trust. And the moment they get Swami's photo and that vibhuti, just so ecstatic. Seeing the joy on their face, I felt, my God, how beautiful it is. The intention, I want to be a part of the good activity that Swami is doing, this thing. And that is the kind of money which Swami is running this institution with.
Right.
So, as we were discussing, it is the small drops that form the, mighty Ganges or the ocean. And it is these intentions and these small actions that come from purity that form this great movement.
Very true. The entire mission of Swami would repeat this over and over again.
Right.
Especially in the early years of the organization. Swami would say that, he wants the organization and its activities to be sustained by people's sacrifice and devotion.
Right.
Not by money,
Yes.
Because money is in plenty. If you actually look at it, money is up for grabs for NGOs, especially NGOs which are able to do transparent work like Swami's organization. But Swami said that's not the idea. The idea is not to, siphon money from the rich to the poor, which is a noble deed nevertheless. But this is a completely different experience.
Totally.
Where you're actually using the sacrifice and devotion of people to serve those who need it.
I was just thinking when I saw these people from Maharashtra, I was thinking, they have come on seva. They have spent their own money and they have come for doing seva here. And after coming here, they're so happy to give a part of their money to the trust. I had tears in my eyes. I mean, that was Nishkam Karma, because, what will they get in return? Totally selfless it was.
It's so perfect that you're mentioning it there, because that's precisely what Swami says in this discourse. When he was talking about that Bhoga and Tyaga.
Right.
Swami says, when you look at it very casually, Bhoga and Tyaga are opposites.
Opposites.
Swami says that a pleasure seeker will not think about renunciation.
Correct.
A renunciate will not think about seeking pleasure.
Right.
And then Swami says that when work is done without ego, and when you experience the world without attachments, no distinction remains between pleasure and renunciation.
Oh my God.
And that's precisely what Swami is saying, that when you give, when there is Tyaga, and you seek to derive pleasure from that Tyaga, the Tyaga also becomes perfect, the Bhoga also becomes perfect.
Very true.
When you speak about these, very, very normal people drawing the joy out of giving.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Right.
That pleasure is something completely different. And the sacrifice becomes perfect because the pleasure is not drawn from the result of giving, but the giving itself.
The giving itself, that's the point. That's the point. Right.
And then, of course, that point where you said about Swami speaks about hunger being a disease, food being a medicine, thirst being a disease. This again, in the last series when Swami spoke about the senses, Swami refers to the senses as a measuring instrument. Matraha, Swami says. Right. So, referring from that and speaking of this, Swami says that, when there is hunger, it's an indication from the body that the body requires something.
Correct.
And your pleasure becomes an indicator for an action. When Swami says, there is a pleasure seeking or the desire for pleasure, that's a disease. And action is the medicine.
Right.
So it's almost like your body is giving you an indication through a craving or through a desire. And there is a pure action which is used as a medicine to assuage that craving.
Very true. Just to expand on this further, it's the attitude with which you do your action.
Right.
Like, suppose there is this requirement that the body presents in front of you. So, if you do it with ego and attachment for the body, then you are doing action which binds you. But if you are doing it free of ego and attachment, then you're doing action which liberates you.
Right. It's something as simple as they say about the consumption of salt, let's say. We all know that when we start sweating, the salt level comes down.
Right.
And salt is very important for all the many biochemical processes which happen. Most of the things which happen are osmotic, which require the different concentrations and all that. The need for salt in the body is actually represented as the craving for something salty.
Okay.
So when you eat food, there is a craving for something salty because the body needs salt. Right? But they say what you've done is, you've taken this craving out of context. And you say that salty food is good. So, all that we refer to as junk food is either excess in salt or excess of sugar. Both are needed for the body. It's like a craving the body expresses in the form of pleasure, saying that, I need something salty, I need something sweet. But when it is drawn out of context, when the purpose of the pleasure is separated from the purpose, and you try to indulge in the pleasure, forgetting, what is the need behind that pleasure. And we end up eating French fries.
So it's also then balance and limit, everything comes into play. I mean, this is tremendous. There's a lot to work on.
Right. So
and then this portion, where he says Kala Karma Karana Kartavya. Right. He has mentioned it twice. He says there has to be harmony of these four. Kala Karma Karana Kartavya. That is the time, action, that is karma. Karana is reason. And Kartavya is duty. Swami has often said, Samayaniki tagu maataladinu. He says, Tyagaraja sings that of Lord Rama, that at the right time, he always spoke the right thing at the right time. And Swami was also very particular, Sabha Maryada, and at what time, what you should do, how you should behave in front of elders, how you should be. There are so many guidelines which Swami gives for us to harmonize these four.
Right. In many, many occasions, especially when we've seen it during a very official event, let's say an inauguration. I remember, I think the Bangalore Super Hospital, when it was inaugurated.
Okay.
Swami was very particular. Then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was there. He gave a discourse, and Swami insisted that he will go to the same podium and speak.
Right.
Like, he did not want that the mic kept in front of him. Of course, that's how always Swami delivers. But on that occasion, Swami went up to the same podium. And Swami delivered a discourse from there. It's almost, many times you would see that Swami will want the same size chairs placed for everybody on the dais on such occasions.
Yeah. And as we discussed earlier, Swami has mentioned this to Dr. John Hislop as well in Conversations with Sai Baba. And he says, why are events in a dream not considered real? That's because there's no time. One moment you're in India, second moment you're in the US, third moment you're elsewhere. So since time and action are not coherent, are not harmonized, so it's not real. So you have to have a unity of all the four to have something real.
I don't know if Swami is speaking further about this, but I think it's a very, very strong concept to understand what is the right thing to do at the right time and with what intention. It is to see this, Kala, Karma, Karana and Kartavyam. Is it the right time to do it? Is it the right action to do at that time? And is the action being done with the right purpose in mind?
Right.
And is it in sync with the overall duty of that your purpose of life itself, you can say.
When Swami gives a class interview, Swami, thank you, Swami, thank you, Swami. It is my duty, sir. Swami would say, it's my duty, sir. Swami would say. Right. So, Karana, Kartavya, the duty which Swami would remind. And of course, it's very beautiful when Swami says, love without duty is divine. His actions are so spontaneous that they're full of love. That itself is his duty.
Right. So, in fact, that is one thing which we had seen in that last part we played. Swami says there is no escape from action.
Right.
There cannot be inaction. Action has to be there. So the question is, how do you perform the perfect action? Or how do you perform action in a manner that it becomes perfect? And that is when you do it as it is, without seeking what the action can bring as a result. So easy to say. So easy to say. Right. But I think it's a lifetime of learning, and as we spoke last time, it's such a beautiful concept itself. The entire Bhagavad Gita speaks about that kind of nishkama karma.
Right.
And I was listening to a talk a couple of days back by the Member of Parliament, Subramaniam Swami.
Yes.
He's been a professor in the Harvard.
Okay.
He says in Harvard and the other business schools, they're very keenly looking at this concept of the Bhagavad Gita, of doing action without, the desire for it. And he was speaking of what are the different kind of problems they have with entrepreneurs from the West and the East.
Okay.
He says entrepreneurs from the West are too adventurous. Because they don't care about the result of the action. The entrepreneurs of the East are too conservative. They're saying that as long as I am safe, as long as I am able to provide for my family and a little people, few people around it, I'm happy. So they don't step into adventurism. So they have found that drawing this lesson from Bhagavad Gita of nishkama karma, of detaching action from the results of the action, is the best way to perform an action as a responsible manager,
as effective as
right, as a CEO, where you take responsibility, but at the same time you don't crave for the results of the action.
Beautiful.
So I think we'll continue with the clip we heard last week, and let's see what Swami has to say.
Students, samasta padarthamulu kodanu kalanugunyanga nasinchunavi. Every matter is bound to disappear according to time. Kalakarma karana kartavyamnu kalisi vachinappudu kayamu kudanu vadalavalsindi satyame. Basing on the time and the responsibility, one has to set the body. Kani kayamu maraninchinappadiki adarshamanetuvanti శాశ్వతంగా స్థిరస్థాయిగా ఉంటుంటాది. అదే చిరంజీవి తత్వం. Though one leaves the body, the aspirations, aims remain permanent, eternal. ఆ యొక్క ఆదర్శాన్ని అందించేటువంటి వ్యక్తిగా మనం తయారు కావాలి. One should be a man of idealism. ఈ ఆదర్శమే తరతరముల వరకు కూడాను ప్రజల యొక్క హృదయం లోపల శాశ్వతంగా నిలిచి ఉంటుంటాది. That spirit of idealism will remain permanent for generations after generations. కనుక మనం ఆశలు ఉండవలసినదే. We should have desires. ఆశలకు కూడా ఒక మితం ఉంటుండాలి.
But there is a limit for these things.
ఆ మితమును పురస్కరించుకొని,
basing on the limitations,
సమాజము దృష్టి ఉంచుకొని,
keeping society in view,
కర్తవ్యములు ఆచరించడానికి ప్రయత్నించడమే
one should perform duties.
ఇది ఏ త్యాగములకు తగినటువంటి భోగము.
This is the real tyaga leading to bhoga.
నిజంగా పరోపకార సంబంధమైన కార్యములో మనం ప్రవేశించినప్పుడు మనకు కలిగేటువంటి ఆనందము ఇంత అంతటి కాదు.
Actually speaking, when we begin to serve others, you cannot count, you cannot measure the happiness you have.
ఆ యొక్క త్యాగం చేతనే ఈ యొక్క ఆనందం అనే భోగాన్ని మనం అనుభవించగలుగుతాము.
It is because of the sacrifice only you enjoy this bliss or happiness.
ఫలాపేక్ష చేత మనం కర్మలు ఆచరించినప్పుడు మనకు ఆనందం అనేటువంటిది లభ్యం కాదు.
But if you have got an aim on the returns, you cannot have this kind of happiness.
కనుకనే ప్రపంచములో మనం మర్చవలసినటువంటిది ఒకటి.
Therefore in this world you should forget one thing.
జ్ఞప్తి ఉంచుకోవలసినది మరొకటి.
You should remember another thing.
ఇవి రెండింటినీ మనం సాధిస్తే ఇది ఏ త్యాగంతో కూడినటువంటి భోగమైపోతుంది.
If we accomplish these things, it amounts to bhoga coupled with tyaga.
మర్చిపోవలసినటువంటి రెండు.
What is it that we should forget?
మనము ఇతరులకు చేసినటువంటి ఉపకారాన్ని మనం మర్చిపోవాలి.
We should forget whatever help that we have done to others.
దానిని మర్చకుండా మన హృదయమునందే ఉంచుకున్నప్పుడు ఆ యొక్క ఉపకారానికి ప్రతిఫలాన్ని ఆపేక్షించుకుంటూ మనం కొంత నిరాశలకు గురి కావచ్చు.
If you keep on remembering it, you expect something in return.
లేక ద్వేష అసూయలకు కూడా మనం మార్గం తీయవచ్చును.
There may be possibility for hatred and jealousy.
కనుక మనం చేసినటువంటి ఉపకారాన్ని మనం అప్పటికప్పుడే మర్చిపోవాలి.
Therefore, whatever help we render, we should forget.
రెండవది, ఇతరులు మనకు చేసినటువంటి అపకారాన్ని మనం మర్చిపోవాలి.
Any harm done to you also should be forgotten.
ఇతరులు మనకు చేసిన అపకారాన్ని మనం చింతిస్తూ ఉంటే దానికి ప్రతి అపకారం చేయాలని మనలో ఒక దుర్భావం ఆవిర్భవిస్తాయి.
If you think of the harm done to you, you think of retaliation.
కనుక అట్టి దుర్భావములు ఆవిర్భవించకుండా ఉండడానికి మనము ఇతరులు మనకు చేసిన అపకారాన్ని కూడా అప్పటికప్పుడే మర్చిపోవాలి.
To see such bad things do not enter into our mind, we should forget the harm done to us.
మనము ఇతరులకు చేసిన ఉపకారము, ఇతరులు మనకు చేసిన అపకారము రెండింటిని మర్చటమే ఇది ఏ త్యాగంతో కూడిన భోగమైపోతుంది.
It is the real tyaga when we forget the help we have done to others and harm done.
అట్టు కాకుండా నిరంతరము కూడా నువ్వు చేసిన ఉపకారాన్ని, పరువు చేసిన అపకారాన్ని స్మరిస్తూ ఉంటుంటే కేవలము మనము మలినపు కొంపగా రూపొందుతాం.
On the other hand, if we keep on remembering these things, the help and the harm, the body becomes a center of dirt.
ఇది కేవలము ఒక దుర్గంధంతో కూడినటువంటి యొక్క దిబ్బ వలె తయారవుతుంది మన దేహము.
It becomes a heap of foul smell.
ఇది మంచిది కాదు.
This is not proper.
దేనిని మనము చింతిస్తుమో దాని యొక్క రియాక్షన్ మనకు ఉంటుంటుంది.
Whatever you think, you will certainly experience a reaction.
కనుకనే భారతీయుల యొక్క సంప్రదాయం నందు కర్మ ఫలం అనేటువంటిది తప్పినది కాదు.
Therefore, according to ancient Bharat tradition,
భారతీయుల యొక్క విశ్వాసం 4 రకమైనటువంటి విశ్వాసములు.
Bharatiyas have got 4 forms of faith.
కర్మ ఫలమును విశ్వసించేటువంటిది వారి ఒక మొదటి విశ్వాసము.
They believe in the fruits of action.
అవతార తత్వాన్ని విశ్వసించేటువంటిది వారికి రెండవ యొక్క విశ్వాసము.
They believe in incarnation.
మనము ఏది చేసినప్పటికీ దాని యొక్క ప్రతిఫలమును మనకు తప్పినది కాదు అనేటువంటిది మూడవ అది విశ్వాసము.
The third faith is whatever action you do, you cannot escape from the results of action.
ఇంకా నాలుగవది ఏమిటంటే ఈ జగత్తునందు మనం ప్రతి ఒక్క విషయం నందు కూడాను కొన్ని రకమైనటువంటి పవిత్రత అనేటువంటి గాఢమైనటువంటి యొక్క విశ్వాసం ఉంటుండాలి.
The fourth thing is whatever we do in this world, everything contains this sanctity, something sacred.
పవిత్రము, ప్రశాంతి, పట్టుదల ఈ మూడింటి యొక్క తత్వం చేతని ఈ నాలుగింటిని మనం సాధించవచ్చును.
The sanctity and the peace with the determination, we can accomplish anything.
No. Purity,
patience,
perseverance.
Purity, patience and perseverance, we can accomplish anything.
ఈ మూడింటి యొక్క తత్వాన్ని మనం చక్కగా దిట్టంగా సాధించాలి.
We should acquire these things with all determination.
కనుకనే విద్యార్థులైన యువకులు ఇప్పటి నుంచి ఈ పవిత్రమైన మార్గంలో ప్రవేశించి
Students right from this age, they should enter into this way.
మనము త్యాగముతో కూడినటువంటి భోగాలను అనుభవించడానికి ప్రయత్నించాలి. రోగముతో కూడిన భోగాన్ని ఆశించకూడదు.
They should enjoy this bhoga with all this tyaga, but not of diseases.
త్యాగము త్యాగమే మనకు ఉండినటువంటి నిజమైనటువంటి భోగం.
The real bhoga consists in tyaga.
అనేక పర్యాయం చెప్పాను. న కర్మణ న ప్రజయ ధనేన త్యాగేనేకి అమృతత్వ మానసు. మనము తీసుకున్నటువంటి గాలిని తిరిగి మనం వదలకపోతే మనకు క్షేమం కలుగుతుందా, హాని కలుగుతుందా?
The air that you breathe, unless you breathe out, you cannot be happy.
లంగ్స్, ఊపిరితిత్తులు దెబ్బతింటాయి.
The lungs would be spoiled.
తీసుకున్నటువంటి ఆహారమును తిరిగి మనం విసర్జించకుండా పోతే ఇది ఉపకారమా, అపకారమా, త్యాగమా, భోగమా? కాదు, రోగంగా తయారవుతుంది, కడుపు చెడిపోతుంది.
If the food partaken, if it is not excreted, you cannot call it a kind of pleasure or sacrifice, or else the abdomen would be spoiled.
కనుకనే ఏ విధంగా మనం తీసుకున్నటువంటి దాన్ని విసర్జించవలనో అదే రీతికుండనే సంపాదించినటువంటి ధనమును కూడా త్యాగం చేస్తూ రావాలి.
Just as you take and sacrifice, in a similar way, whatever that you earn, you should be prepared to
కనుకనే
sacrifice.
నకర్మణ న ప్రజయ ధనేన త్యాగేనైకే అమృతత్వ మానసు. మన ధనం ఏమిటి? జ్ఞానధనం, విద్యాధనము, యవ్వనధనము, ఆనందధనము, జ్ఞానధనము, ఇవన్నీ కూడా మనకు ధనంతో కూడినటువంటివి.
What do you mean with this wealth? The wealth amounts to the wisdom. The wealth amounts to the
ఇవన్నీ
education.
కూడా విద్యాధనమును మనం ఆర్జించాము. ఆ విద్యాన్ని ఇతరులకు బోధించేటువంటి దాంట్లో మనం త్యాగం చేయాలి.
Having earned the wealth of education, you should disseminate knowledge to
ఆ
others.
త్యాగం చేతనే మన విద్య మరింత పోషించుకొని అభివృద్ధిగా ఉంచుకుంటుంది.
Out of sacrifice only you can develop your education.
ఇది ప్రబోధనే చేయకుండా పోయినప్పుడు మన విద్య అడుగంటిపోతుంది.
When you do not propagate, you will certainly lose that education.
కనుక ఎంత త్యాగం చేస్తూ ఉంటుంటామో అంత అభివృద్ధి కూడా కాంచుతుంది.
The more you sacrifice, the more it develops.
కేవలము ఎవరికో మనకు ఉపకారం చేస్తున్నామని భావించరాదు.
You should never think that you are helping someone else.
మనకు మనమే ఉపకారం చేసుకుంటున్నాం.
You are helping your own self.
ఈ యొక్క బోధన ఇతరులకు చేయటం చేత ఆ బోధన యొక్క ప్రభావము మనలో దినదినాభివృద్ధిగా ఉంచుతుంది.
By teaching repeatedly, you will experience the effect of these teachings.
విద్యార్థులారా, మన యొక్క జీవితం యొక్క పెరగటం మాత్రమే మనం చూసుకుంటున్నాము. ఈ జీవితంలో తరిగేటువంటి యొక్క తత్వం ఏమిటో మనం విచారించటం లేదు.
Students, we think of this growth alone, but we are not thinking the other aspect, that decline.
ఆయువుతో పాటే మన యొక్క జీవితము నిండి ఉంటుండాలి.
The life is full of longevity.
మనం దేహం ఎంత పెరుగుతూ వస్తుంటుండాదో ఆయుస్సు అంత తరుగుతూ వస్తుంటుండాలి.
As the body grows more and more, the longevity decreases.
ఈనాడు సూర్యోదయము, సూర్యాస్తాన్ని గురించి మనం ఎంతో ఆనందిస్తుంటుంటాం.
We feel very happy about the sunrise and sunset.
సన్ రైజ్ అయిందంటే అనగా సూర్యోదయం అయిందంటే ఆహా సూర్యోదయం అయింది, వెలుతురు వచ్చింది, ఇంకా మన పనులు మనం ప్రారంభిస్తాం అని ఆనందిస్తున్నాము.
We are very happy with the sunrise. We enter into daily work because of
కానీ
daytime broad
సూర్యాస్తమయం
light.
కాగానే ఆహా ఇంకా ప్రశాంతంగా నిద్రించవచ్చు, దేహానికి సరైన విశ్రాంతి ఇవ్వవచ్చును అని ఆనందిస్తున్నాం.
At this time of sunset, it will be dark. You feel that we can take rest.
ఇది కేవలము అజ్ఞానము యొక్క ప్రభావమే.
This is the effect of ignorance.
ఈ సూర్యోదయ సూర్యాస్తమం చేత మనం ఎంత ఆనందిస్తున్నామో ఆ సూర్యోదయ సూర్యాస్తమం రెండు కొను మన ఆయు ప్రమాణాన్ని తీసుకుని పోతున్నాయి.
We feel very happy about the sunrise and sunset, but at the same time they will take away our
దీనిని
life.
మనం విచారించటం లేదు.
This we are not inquiring.
కనుకనే ప్రతి మానవుడు కూడాను సూర్యోదయ సూర్యాస్తమం కాయే పూర్వమే తన యొక్క కర్తవ్యాన్ని నిర్వర్తించాలి.
Therefore, prior to sunrise and sunset, everyone will have to undertake discharge or responsibility.
రామకృష్ణ పరమహంస కూడాను తెల్లవారి మొదలు రాత్రి వరకు కూడాను ఆ దివ్యమైనటువంటి దర్శన నిమిత్తమై ప్రాకులాడుతూ వచ్చాడు.
Ramakrishna Paramahamsa made every effort to have that darshan of Kali from dawn to dusk.
పండుకోవడానికి పూర్వం కూడాను అటు ఇటు చూచేటువంటి వాడు.
While going to bed, he used to look hither and thither.
అయ్యో ఈనాడు కూడాను వ్యర్థమైపోయాయని, ఈనాడు కూడాను నా కృష్ణుడు నాకు కనిపించలేదే అని చాలా విచారంతో పవళించేటువంటి వాడు.
Today is also wasted. I could not have darshan, the appearance of the divine. He used to feel a lot about it.
కనుక ఈ విధమైనటువంటి ఒక్కొక్క దినము కూడాను ఒక్కొక్క క్షణంగా భావించి ఆ దివ్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క అనుభూతి కోసమై అనేక రకములుగా బాధలు పడ్డారు.
Considering every day as a precious moment, they used to feel a lot for having wasted it.
మహర్షులందరూ కూడాను ఇలాంటి తాపత్రయమే తపస్సుగా మార్చుకొని దివ్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆత్మతత్వాన్ని అనుభవిస్తూ వచ్చారు.
The ancient rishis converted this yearning into penance and attained with all their effort.
ఏమిటి?
Swami concludes with saying, what is the meaning of tapas? Because that, I guess we'll have to wait for 1 week. This is a long clip which we played today.
Yeah.
But you know how beautiful it is when Swami narrates anything. You know, just that small episode of Ramakrishna Paramahansa's house. I mean, alive. It really comes in front of your eyes. You know, alive when Swami narrates it with the same emotion with which Swami utters that dialogue. Before that, of course, Swami again makes this reference to Kala Karma Karana Kartavya. And he says it's almost like an inevitable circle of life which keeps doing its task. You might forget, Kala Karana Kartavyam and karma and all of it, but there is something which is larger than you, probably nature or probably the creation itself, which is keeping in step with this.
With these four concepts. Right, very true. And then this part is very, very beautiful. He says, yes, desires are necessary. You want to lead your life, desires are necessary and you have to, but it should be within limits. When you do actions with a sense of duty that is for the welfare of all, that brings about this Tyaga and Bhoga.
All right. And Swami, of course, says that the joy that you derive from selfless action cannot be measured.
Right.
Very, very true. In fact, sometime back when we were having a discussion, we were talking about what is it about Swami's educational system which stands out.
Okay.
The universities all over the place. In fact, the chancellor of our university right now, he was telling, in a span of 12 years, the number of colleges has gone up by something like 17,000 or something in the country. So what is it that Swami's educational system stands out? And one of the points which we came up with was, this idea that you can find happiness by giving.
Correct.
It's a very simple thing which is very practically taught. There is joy in living a life which is larger than yourself, larger than you and your family alone. That is such an empowering thought. Because all the time you're given an education which is enabling you to, Swami would say, fill your belly.
Correct.
And you're all the time thinking that what will happen if I don't get a good job? What will happen if I don't? And here is Swami giving this idea that yes, you grabbing will give you happiness, but do you know that while giving you can find, if not more, at least equal amount of happiness?
No, but as you're mentioning this, the whole idea of how Swami led his life, he was born in a village and had no resources, had no money. What did he have? When you say you have to give, what did he have? He just gave himself. He gave himself, and he gave the joy of selfless love. That's what started everything in Parthi, if you see, and then absolutely without expecting any results, because if Swami had wanted results, then I think he could have built everything in 1945 itself. He could have started a huge super specialty hospital. He could have started, and maybe rates were much lower at that time. But it had to come about in a way which was spontaneous. And there was absolutely no eye on the results of what he was doing. Selflessly for how many years? Morning and evening interviews, darshans and interviews. I mean, that itself is tremendous.
Yes, I think we've mentioned this many times before, that experience of Mrs. Kamala Sarthi. When she's a disciple of the Ramakrishna order. So she had this great difficulty in accepting Swami performing miracles. Because we know that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa would often speak against the exhibition of powers. So she would wonder, why is Swami doing all this? Why is Swami reading people's mind and materializing objects? So she was a little uncomfortable with it. She was here. And she describes one scene when one day a group of devotees are returning after a stay in Prasanthi Nilayam. So, they all are getting into the bullock cart and Swami is sending them off. And she's standing there at the gate and she's seeing the scene. She says, from a 60-year-old to a 6-year-old, all of them were sobbing.
Wow.
At the perspective of leaving Swami and going, and Swami was consoling them. All of them were in tears and crying, and they were. Swami would describe this scene. Swami would stand at an elevated place near the old mandir and wave his handkerchief.
That's right.
Till the bullock cart is off the horizon, and she sees the scene, and all of them are crying till they're out of sight. And she was standing there and thinking over this, and running this whole visual in her mind. And she said, "See, if people are drawn to Swami only because of his miracles, then they won't cry like this."
Very true.
No, you will be attracted to him, you'll be excited about being in his presence, but you will not cry at the perspective of leaving him and going. And she's saying, what is it about Swami? What is Swami giving that it's attracting people like this madly? And then she says that it could only be Swami's love. Again, when this thought comes that it could only be Swami's love, she feels a pat on her back. Okay, and she turns back and Swami is standing there. And Swami very sweetly tells her, Kamla Sarthi, what you're thinking is the right thought.
My God.
Hold on to it, you will understand Swami better.
Wow.
Oh, beautiful it is. Right? And that's what, when you said that Swami did not have anything to give, what did the old one have to offer in the form of hospitality?
That's what, there was no hospitality, there was no rooms, there was nothing, but Swami was there.
Right.
He was there all the time.
Giving himself. Really.
Giving himself, absolutely.
In fact, when I was sharing this particular incident with one of the lecturers, you were saying that something very similar happened during the 50th birthday.
Okay.
1975. We have those visuals of the 50th birthday.
Right,
The camps all around the stupa.
Yes.
It's almost like a refugee camp. All of them have put up their camps and all that.
Yeah.
So it seems Dr. Bhagawantam was standing in one of the balconies and looking at the site. He said, what is this, man? What is drawing so many people here? And not all of them are ordinary people.
Right.
There are a lot of people who come from the cities who have having no qualms and living out in the open like this.
Exactly.
He says, what is it that is drawing and he was thinking this way, and very silently Swami came and stood next to him, and Swami was also looking at the scene. So he's saying, Bhagavantam, I also think sometimes, what is it that draws people to me like this? That they're ready to put up with all these discomforts. Really. And that was the thing, when Swami says here that the joy that there is in giving is unbelievably higher than the joy which is in grabbing. We've seen it in front of Swami. And another scene which always stays in my mind is, when this Parthi Yatras now have become a very common thing.
Right.
One of the earliest ones I recall, of course, there must have been many before, is during when the Srikakulam people had come.
Okay.
In a huge number. I think they had done a beautiful program for a year where they had taken a lamp from here. Swami had lit a lamp. They had managed to take the lamp with the burning flame to Srikakulam, which is almost in the border of Andhra and Orissa. And with that lamp, they lit lamps in every house in that district. And mandirs in all those places were lit with the same lamp. So they'd come back in a huge number, and most of them are tribal people of very poor background. They were here for 3 days, and for 3 days Swami did not speak to them. Swami did not take a card from them, and they were hoping that Swami will give them a audience. But Swami was not speaking to them at all. On the day they were leaving, Swami gave a discourse in the morning all of a sudden. Totally unscheduled. Students were not there. We were former students by then. So we were there, and Swami gave a discourse. And in that discourse, Swami said, you all are wondering, right, why Swami did not give you for these 2 days. Swami said, to give you this joy. Swami said, I held back so that now when I speak, how happy you are. But you should believe me when I say it, nobody was happier than Swami. Because he had given happiness to so many people, and you could see that in Swami's face. And I remember that day very well, because we were sitting backstage and we were thinking, today is the day we can give anything to Swami, a letter or ask anything. Because Swami is so happy. And that is what Swami stood as an example for us. He stands as an example for us, that when he gives, he's the happiest.
In fact, it's a common experience in the sense when he would materialize maybe a ring, a chain or whatever, his eyes light up. He's the one who's giving us, but his eyes light up with so much of happiness. It's just amazing.
That one batch of 10th standard students would say in their class interview, Swami materialized the Kohinoor.
Yeah, that was in our batch.
Your batch.
Okay, maybe also in our batch.
Many batches.
Yeah, that's
this time, it seems Swami materialized and showed to all the children there. And immediately after the interview, the first person to come, bursting out of the interview room and saying to all the VIPs that, hey, you know what? I showed the children my coin.
That's true. That's true.
Really, the happiness which Swami found in giving happiness.
And that's the example he set for us.
Really?
That's the example he set for us. And it is to be constantly in that frame of mind that you should give more than you should take is something very beautiful.
Right. And of course, that's what Swami says here. The joy we derive from selfless actions cannot be measured.
Yes.
And then Swami goes on to this, very practical way of living this.
Correct.
Swami says, there are two things you have to strive to forget. If you do this, you can live in, I don't know about a spiritual life or anything else, you can live such an uncluttered life. Right. Your mind can be so free. Swami says, forget the good that you've done to others and forget the harm that others have done to you.
I mean, this is definitely one strong step in Nishkama Karma. So when you see somebody and you associate him or her with something bad they have done to you, so your mind is influencing your course of action. So you start acting in a way which is not very pleasant to the other person or fair to that person. So live in the moment. Forget the past. Everything is so connected. But
there was a conversation which Bishu did with one of Swami's devotees in Pondicherry.
Okay.
And this person does phenomenal service in the villages around. He's an owner of a factory or something. But he spends most of his time in those villages around which he has adopted, and he speaks to those people. So when Bishu had been to his place, they traveled to this particular village where there was this lady who had a suicidal tendency.
Okay.
And once apparently she had tried to commit suicide when she was pregnant. And they had a lot of trouble trying to save her life. And this person had spent enormous amounts of money in her medication to help her survive, and then brought her back to good mental health. And about 3 months later, again she tried to commit suicide. And this person went and he was again trying to console her. And Bishu asked her, sir, you've spent so much money in trying to save her life. And then 3 months later, you find that she's again trying to do that. Don't you feel betrayed? You spent so much of your time and energy in trying to help her. Don't you feel betrayed that she's again doing this? He said, no. See, that's not how Swami wants us to do. That was done and it was forgotten. This is different.
Wow, amazing.
And he was saying it in a very obvious way. That's how Swami expects us to do. Just because I saved her life, I cannot expect that she should owe her life to me. Even in the manner that she should not try to take it away. If she wants to feel like that, it's up to her. It's her goodness. But I am not meant to expect that.
Amazing.
How beautiful it is, how practical it is when Swami says when you do good to others, how difficult it is. I think each one of us know. Because we remember it, that I have done this, I've helped you.
It's such a practical, absolutely practical way of looking at it.
Right. And of course then forget the harm that others have done to you. It again goes back to an explanation of karma theory, which Swami would say, whatever you undergo in life is the prarabdha karma, or what we call the destiny for this life. But Swami says, even as you're working out the prarabdha karma, you are doing a lot of karmas in the process. And I think that's called agami karma, right?
Okay.
So the idea is, Swami is saying here, when you start forgetting the harm others have done to you, this concept of, let me get even with him or let me take revenge against her, you're dropping that and you're reducing this possibility of performing further karma, or what we call agami karma.
Very true.
And you kind of, through purified action, you're trying to work out the karma you've come to work out.
In fact, in that speech by Swami Sarvapriyananda, to the IIT students in Kanpur, very beautifully he explains this whole concept. He says, what drives you to action is your vasanas. Your vasanas drive you. And by the time you think your action is done and you're, there to face the consequences. So, where is it that we have a choice? Do we have a choice? And so he says, there is a very tiny window, a small window, where Lord Krishna says, Raga Dvesha, without Raga and Dvesha. So if you do the action without Raga Dvesha, then you are not bound by the fruits of that action. And so he says, so slowly if you start doing all your actions without Raga Dvesha, then your prarabdha is wiped out. It's a very nice explanation too.
Somebody had just forwarded a message sometime back where it says, there's a person who asked the master, do we have a choice or do we not have a choice? So he says, you do and you don't. He says you have a choice whether to do or not, but you don't have a choice once you have done it. The reaction comes to you.
That's true.
So I think Swami would also say that the speciality of the human being, the human birth, is the pronounced presence of the buddhi. Correct. Or the discrimination. You always have that ability to stop and do or not do.
Right.
And I think that is what Swami speaks in the the later part of the clip which we played, where Swami is saying that you can always keep your intention in the right direction.
Correct.
Like when Swami speaks about forgetting the good you have done to others, and it's that thought experiment they say. The speaker goes into the auditorium and says, "Now I want you to not think about a pink elephant." He says, the moment you say that, everybody's thinking about the pink elephant. So when you tell your mind, forget about the good you've done to the others, I think that's what comes in mind, right? So, but when you start making that attempt, you're at least in the right direction. You might be 100% successful, or you might be 0.1% successful in the endeavor, but you're at least in the right direction. I think that is within the reach of everybody.
Very true. I mean, this chapter on karma is so amazing. The second thing is, if I have to act without expecting the fruit of action, can I go and murder somebody? Can I go and do something and say that this is what God wanted me to do? See, these are questions which we'll have to analyze, because you don't have the right to do it. And that explanation which Swami gave, I don't know if it is in this chapter or the previous discourse, where he says the sun is there for all, but the sun is not responsible for everything that happens under the light of the sun.
Right.
Similarly, the Lord is there. He is a witness. But what you do, you face. So only actions which you do to purify yourself and connect to the Lord are what will take you further in your path.
And then Swami speaks about the three tenets of Indian culture.
Yes.
What define Indian culture? Swami says it's the belief in the action-reaction cycle, or what we call the karma theory, and the belief that God can incarnate in a human form. Which is central. Avatar. And then everything in the world is a form of God and is naturally sacred.
Yes.
And so beautiful. And Swami says that take these three and think over it, and you will understand life better. Beautiful. And of course, that purity, patience, and perseverance part.
Yes.
Swami corrected Anil Kumar sir. Then, of course, Swami emphasizes on again the renunciation part.
Correct.
Where he says renunciation is our true pleasure. Swami, again, he doesn't say that pleasure seeking is bad. I mean, at least in this discourse. Swami is saying that seek the pleasure, but seek the pleasure through renunciation.
Seek the right pleasure.
Right. Seek the right pleasure, the ultimate pleasure. And Swami says that na karmana, na prajaya, na dhane, na tyage, na ke. And again, a beautiful interpretation of this verse. Right?
Yes.
Generally, when we read it, we say that not through action, not through progeny, not through wealth. But Swami is taking this tyaga and putting it in each one of this.
Correct.
Karma and tyaga together. Your duties and tyaga together, your wealth and tyaga together. And Swami is saying, when you say what are the wealth that you have, education, youth, wisdom, joy, and so on, and using each one of this through sacrifice,
correct,
will give you the ultimate liberation. Right?
Yes.
And Swami is almost like challenging the students. Try using whatever you have for the joy of others. Then you will know the joy for yourself.
If you look at it this way, it's not only the money, the wealth that you need to, it's everything, your knowledge, your energy as youth, your joy, your happiness, everything can be shared.
Right.
And that's the beautiful part.
And then this part which is so powerful, when Swami speaks about sunrise and sunset. He's saying, so you're chirpy in the morning when you wake up.
Correct.
Oh, it's another day. And you're happy in the night, you got your much deserved rest. But you don't stop to think that each day is actually eating away a day from your lifespan.
One day is gone.
Right.
And of course, the story of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, how...
Right. I think it's a very beautiful point which Swami is making, because one doubt which comes out of superficial thinking, even I've always wondered that way. You have these concepts, the modern concepts, like they call YOLO.
Okay.
Right? It's called you only live once.
Okay.
So have fun.
Okay.
Right? That's become a concept in the urban culture now.
Okay.
So it is like saying that now is the moment you have pleasure, you have fun. Now, why are you wasting the moment? Why are you thinking about the past and the future and all of that? But from what Swami has told in this discourse, especially that, karma karana kartavyam, you enjoy the pleasure but never detach that pleasure from the purpose.
Okay.
And that is what the problem comes. Swami does not say that lead a gloomy life. Of course, in this part, Swami says that, the tapa becomes tapa. That feeling of agony of, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa saying that, one more day is gone,
right.
I have not reached my goal. And that tapa becomes tapa. But we've seen that with devotees. Swami would speak about the devotees who've cried and pined for the Lord. Swami would say they found the joy in that.
Correct.
See, somebody like Radha who kept crying and crying for Krishna, if she did not find joy, she could have stopped crying.
Right.
She could have sought something else. It was because there was some joy hidden in that pain that they did not want to give up that pain.
Correct.
So that's something like Swami saying that, yes, this moment you have to live. This moment you have to enjoy. That bhoga is there, but find that bhoga in tyaga.
Very true. It's a lifetime of practice that we have to go through for this. I think we have to do mananam on this.
Absolutely.
The more we think of it, the more meanings come out.
Yes. So dear listeners, this is the time we conclude the episode. But hopefully, as Prakash said, Manana goes on. And we do hope that we will constantly be able to go back to these discourses and go through them, because I'm sure that 1 year from now, if we go through the same discourse, it will throw many more insights for us. And that's the only way we can understand Swami's discourse. The understanding has to come from within.
Right.
And me speaking about it, Sai Prakash speaking about it, or anybody else giving commentary about it, I think will not give us the understanding.
Correct.
It only comes with silent contemplation and praying to Swami that he gives us the opportunity to ever do that. We offer this humble effort of ours at Swami's lotus feet. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.